What is happening, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Voice of Camp Nathaniel. And as always, coming at you from right here on the campus of Camp Nathaniel in Emelina, Kentucky, Stephen Bell. And with me, as always, is unfortunately, I have no adjective for him today,
Lee Sharp, guys.
It's been a busy morning, man. Give me a break. All
if
right?
you're a regular listener, you know that Stephen always has some sort of ridiculous adjective that he's probably gone to chat GBT.
Come on, you got
the
it.
AI overlord.
The AI overlord.
That gives us fun words and sentences and songs.
Well, I will say that, yes, I have used that before. I didn't use it for last. If you tuned into the last episode, the clairvoyant, remember that one?
Clairvoyant.
You know, the ability to see into the future, which we don't promote.
No.
So how you doing, man? You doing good?
I'm doing all right.
That's good. Hey, listen, I am, I'm super stoked about the show because it's something that's near and dear to both of our hearts because our families, it connects our families as well as so many families that we know. We're going to get to more of that here in just a second. Before we do, just a reminder, everybody, we're right in the middle of outdoor education right now.
Yes.
Going on here at Camp Nathaniel. And what is outdoor education, Lee, for those who have never seen it before?
Outdoor education essentially turns Camp Nathaniel into one of the greatest field trips.
Man, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Just ever.
That's right.
So this year we have camp themed out into the Pioneer Days. And so everyone is dressed in their vests and
suspenders,
straw hats,
and pitchforks.
We have
my favorite.
What have we got around here? We've got butter making stations and quilting stations.
You can learn how to milk a cow, but just not from an actual cow.
We have pretend cows.
We have pretend cows here.
We could get real cows, but that's a whole liability thing.
That was not in our budget.
That was not in the budget to get the real cows. But camp has transformed into this field trip area for a lot of the local schools and home schools and all that. And so we have had a ton of kids coming through and exploring camp.
Over 3,000 by the time this is all over, by the way.
And
did you realize that? Over 3,000 kids will set their foot on campus as a result of Outdoor Ed this year.
As a result of Outdoor Ed. That's incredible.
That's insane.
If you're wanting to check it out yourself,
I
was double checking our dates here on when our podcast was going to premiere. So this is coming out on the 15th.
That's right.
So coming up, not this week that it's premiering, but the week after on the 24th.
That's the family night.
That evening, we are having family night.
We're talking a lot about families today, so we might as well plug family night.
Plug family night. At family night, you can come. There'll be free food starting at 5:30, if I'm remembering correctly. And there'll be all kinds of food there. And then we'll open up campus to all of the different activities that we have going on. And you'll be able to go around with your family and check out the pioneering days of the 1800s.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So if you want more information on that, you can follow Camp on Facebook. Make sure you're doing that. Check it out at campnathaniel.org, and we will get you all the details. Or you can call Camp, 606-251-3231. Get all the details on how you guys can get involved. Again, that family night, September 24th, 5:30 p.m. for dinner, and then the program starts around 6:30. Is that right?
Around after, yep.
Awesome.
And we'll have, I think somebody is coming with dulcimers.
Yeah, the guy who makes his own dulcimers. It's going to be pretty sweet.
Dinner and a show kind of thing there.
Yeah,
I don't know. It'll be a lot of fun.
It's going to be awesome. Hey, listen, we have got just a great, if you want to call it program, show, we'll call it whatever for the day because, again, I was alluding earlier, it's something that's near and dear to both my family and Lee's family's heart. We're talking about the topic of adoption today.
Yeah.
And not only do we get to just talk about adoption, but we actually get to have a couple of people, not in the studio, but through the miraculous wizardry of the internet. we get to hang out with them over the internet. We've got them on the line right now. We want to introduce to you guys, to the listeners of the Voice of the Camp Nathaniel, to Jonathan and Kaitlyn Tate from Berea, Kentucky. How you doing, guys?
Good, doing well.
Doing good.
Awesome. Hey, we're gonna give everybody the background on Jonathan and Kaitlyn and tell you how we came about to connect with them. But it all circles around this idea of adoption. Now, Lee, again, going back to minding your families for a second.
Yep.
That's something that's pretty heavily involved in. Would you say?
My oldest son is adopted.
That's right.
So
I've got 6 kids, 3 of which are adopted, both internationally through international adoption and foster care. And you guys are currently a foster care family.
Yep. We've had a few kids come and go through our home. So
that's right.
It's always the question of how many kids do you have?
Right.
That's a fluctuating number.
That's true. Well, Jonathan and Kaitlyn, again, you guys are from Berea. Kaitlyn, you've got some ties. Let's start with your ties to Camp Nathaniel. We were talking before we came on the air. Jonathan, not so much. Jonathan was here for a wedding one time, and which here's the funny part, Lee. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
Guess whose wedding Jonathan was here for? Jackie's.
What?
His sister did photography for Jackie's wedding.
Wait a second.
Do you guys realize that Lee is Jackie's brother-in-law? Okay, just making sure.
All of the connections there. They made the connections faster than I did. I was like, wait a minute.
So Jonathan, that was your only time on campus, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good deal. Now, Kaitlyn, yours is a little bit more in depth than. Sorry, Jonathan, that's all you got, man. I wish there was more, but Kaitlyn, let's talk about your ties to Camp Nathaniel in the past.
Oh, I started out, I was a day camper, and then I went 9-year, I think, summer camper from 4th to high school, and then I also worked a few summers at Camp Nathaniel.
So Jonathan, she's got a couple days on you there.
Just a few.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, we're so happy we could connect with you guys again, and again, it's around this whole concept of adoption because we get to hear from your all's story. We connected with you guys back probably right around this time last year, maybe a little bit further into the fall, and we'll talk about how that came about here in a little bit because there's a ministry aspect that we have here at Camp Nathaniel that my wife and I kind of started and brought in with us called Nonstop Families, and that plays into to how it relates to the Tates here in a second. But you guys have 2 children, correct?
Yes.
All right. And we're going to let you guys kind of fill us in on them and your adoption journey. You guys have Kevin and Dylan, and they are home. They're doing great. We were catching up with you guys here just before we went on the air. But before we get up to that whole time and how God brought you guys to that point, how about we kind of start from where, how did adoption, this idea of adoption and bringing children into your home as part of as part of a forever family, how did God begin that work in your all's hearts?
That's all Kaitlyn. One of the first things she made known while we were dating was God told me when I was younger I was going to adopt. So we will adopt one day. So that's how it all really got started.
All right, man. That's a non-negotiable. That's great.
Yeah. But it's just something I've always known that I wanted to do, and just through mission trips and everything growing up, it just became more and more. And I was like, yep, wasn't sure what it looked like or, when it would happen, but I just knew that was something God had always laid on my heart.
Very cool. Very cool. So, and you guys were married when?
August 8th, 2015.
I'm always a little scared. I'm always a little like, oh, should I ask people when interviewing when they got married when they're sitting right next to each other in case one of them forgets? That's not going to be good, is it? So
she made it easy on me. It's 8/8. So 2 infinity signs in 2015.
Nice. There you go. Way to go, man. Well done.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys are married. So kind of take us through that journey. What led you up? Obviously you had the desire to adopt, but we get into a time frame and stuff like that because we're talking. You guys were married in 2015. Was that right? 2015, and we're talking about just bringing your boys home this past year. So kind of bring us through that story now.
We tried a few different more traditional ways to grow our family, and just went through some infertility, and so we kind of just were like, well, let's just let's go ahead and start the adoption process. We tried to grow our family a different way, and we weren't successful. And so we kind of were like, all right, this is, we kind of prayed about it, talked about it, and we were like, I think this is God showing us that like now's our time to adopt. Like,
we hit a stopping point with the doctors probably early 2022.
Okay.
It was at another pivot point. You either try this or do this medication or have this procedure. And at that point, she'd already done
several things.
Several things, and
I'm ready to adopt. I'm ready to pursue a different.
And that's kind of when we were like, okay,
God
I
is
guess
leading us.
this is our time to start the process.
Absolutely.
And so I remember we looked at several different agencies and different things, and we settled with All God's Children. And so we officially signed like our contract, or I can't even, it doesn't feel that long ago, but it does. We signed that initial paper that we were like, we're doing this in June of 2022.
Well, I think it was technically May 31st because they were doing like a Mother's Day special. You get like $100 off the fee.
Okay, yeah.
So then like June 2022, we just really hit the ground running on the stuff we needed to do.
Because that's when we told our families and everything. We're like, we're serious. This is where God's leading us. So,
Cool.
Yeah, that's one thing that people may have a lot of questions about. How was it communicating that to your family? And again, you guys share whatever you want. I don't, I'm not trying to pry information out of you and stuff like that. But some people have a lot of questions about, through this whole process, through this whole journey. Maybe any light you can shine on there. How was that for you guys?
I mean, I think my family kind of, knew it was coming. They weren't super surprised. And I mean, really, we were met with a lot of happiness. And I mean, a lot of people that aren't super familiar with adoption, especially we went international adoption. So, like we got several questions of, why there and why that country and everything. And we're like, this is God's story. Like we're
right.
we're just doing what he says. Like we, 100% that God led us to Colombia and led us to our boys, and it was just meant to be.
was there a particular? I mean, obviously, yes, God sovereignly leads us to where we are to bring these children home. Was there any specific reason why Colombia, or was it just through All God's Children and a random reason, or anything along these lines?
So I'm fluent in Spanish.
Oh, sweet. That helps.
There you go.
So when we started to talk to All God's Children, we had Spanish countries in mind.
Yeah.
We just felt like that would be.
She'd gone to mission trips to Honduras quite a few times, right? So
In Venezuela.
And those are two of the hardest countries to even try to adopt a kid from.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked with our advisor at AGCI, and she narrowed it down to two countries, Colombia and Ecuador. And we had kind of just been to Colombia through a cruise to Cartagena. We loved the country. The Ecuador was also kind of newer at that point as well. And so we felt like them being established in Colombia, it was a good match.
Yeah.
And then we also knew several people from Colombia that were close friends, like, Chris Bumbalo.
Right.
I grew up, him and his wife, and Sandra's from Colombia, and then got several friends here that are from Colombia. So we knew a little bit. And so we were like, I think this is a fit.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
It's neat how God will work out even just in, it's like, oh, well, God's leading us. And sometimes that sounds big and mysterious. But in reality, that works out in some very practical ways.
It really does.
Hey,
yeah.
we had friends there and we just felt that this is what we needed to do. And it feels, it's neat to just see how that plays out in a very, I don't know, just less mysterious and whatnot. It's like, oh no, this is actually like, this just makes sense.
Well, here's a kind of a question. Jonathan, at what point did you become fluent in Spanish? Because I'm like, that's a huge deal, man.
I went to a private school here in Richmond from like pre-K to 8th grade, and 1st grade on, we had a friend that her mom was from Venezuela. She had been here for a little while, so she's like, we'll just come in every Friday, kind of teach the basics, that kind of thing. Got to high school, and I was like, I mean, I've had Spanish this long, might as well do my 2 years of Spanish and get it done with. I didn't really see myself pursuing it after that. But then I got to college, and I was like, what in the world am I going to major in? And one of the only things that I really knew that I knew a lot of was Spanish.
Really?
So I went to Georgetown College and I got a Commerce, Language, and Culture degree, which is a dual degree between business and a language that they offer. And I obviously went with the Spanish side. I never felt like I was really fluent until I studied in Spain for a month, and one of my friends had a problem, and I just easily stepped up and within 2 seconds knew what the problem was and what the solution was.
Wow.
And cool. I was like, okay, this is cool. So yeah.
So now I always joke, I'm like that college education, because, you know, now he's pivoted and kind of does something completely different for work. So I'm like, we're using that college education.
Well, you're using it to directly impact your family, for one. I mean, that's the mind blowing thing of all of this is God's just having you learn Spanish. God's having you learn Spanish the majority of your life up to this point. That will ultimately result in bringing about what he's doing in your family, which is so incredibly cool, man. So incredibly cool. Wow. Okay, so now when did you started the process? You said May 31st of 2022. Were you matched up with Kevin and Dylan immediately, because we kind of understand how that process works a little bit, and it's different based on agencies. But tell us about your all's experience, and when did you finally get matched up with your boys?
Well, we kind of found them. They were on, because our agency, which I think this is pretty standard for most, kind of has like a waiting, harder to place, due to maybe it's health issues or family dynamics and different things. And so, we would just constantly, periodically check the page. And I think it was around Christmas that year, because I remember
or was it 23?
No, I think maybe it was around.
It was 2020, Christmas 2022.
Because we had found their profiles, and I had kind of found them and he had found them. And then I remember us like sending them to like each other and kind of saying like, I don't know, I'm feeling like I think these might be our boys. And he was like, well, I think they might be our boys too.
That's awesome.
And so, we didn't officially get matched until I think March though of that year, because just due to, we had to be so far, like we had to have our home study and all this other paperwork finished. And so I remember thinking, we're like, we have to get this done. We want to be officially matched. And so,
That's
so when we finally
Okay, well, let me let's fast forward a little bit now, because now you're into the point to where you've matched up. You have to get your the big word is dossier, all right? Because that thing is massive.
I'm shrugging my shoulders right now. This is something I have not done.
What is it? What? Really?
I have.
You guys know what I'm talking about when I say dossier, right?
Me and my
ours
wife
got lost in the mail.
That's right. Yours got lost in the mail?
Yes.
So the beginning of 2023 started a slew of problems that we hit in our process.
Okay.
Always paperwork.
Always paperwork. At one point, like maybe around March, April, that's about when we sent our letter of intent in for the boys.
Mm-hmm.
And come to find out that at that same point, another family had sent in an LOI. So then those had to go to country, and then the in-country personnel had to discuss the LOIs, and that took forever. And then once that got through,
and they finally are like, "You're the family," and so we're like, running to get everything that our blood type and our it feels like you said, like everything about me is in this 4-inch stack of paper. We mail it and it gets lost.
Oh my goodness. So Lee, yes, a dossier is like, it's like the most ridiculously large stack of documents with every bit of personal information you've ever had in your entire life in it. And
not something you want to go missing.
Not something that you want to go missing. That's right. And so wow.
Like
okay.
Somewhere in America is every detail about our entire life. Spread like confetti.
Well,
the box made it, but it was empty.
The box made it?
They put it in one of those they put it in one of those cardboard manila boxes.
Yeah.
And we kept checking the carrier's website, and it's like, it should be here by now. It should be here by now.
Oh my goodness.
We called for like a week straight, and finally I got through to somebody, and they're like, the package arrived empty.
Oh.
And we were like, you're telling me in the airplane that it shredded open, and if those doors would have opened, our papers would have just trickled down into around anywhere in the U.S.
Oh, good.
It's out in the middle of the ocean somewhere.
Yeah. Wow.
So in 24 hours, we're like calling our rep, Stefania, and we're like, so our dossier is lost. And so she starts and we start. He's going to Frankfurt and I'm going, like, we're going around we're getting our like marriage certificate or all of these are birth certificates again. And so we were finally, and within like 24 hours, we have it and we mail it to her. And so
wow, that's impressive. So the question is, I mean, did you ever find the original documents? So did they ever find them?
They sent an email like 6-8 months after, and they're like, hey, we got these papers. What do you want us to do with them?
Yeah, they finally arrived.
Okay. All right. So they arrived 8 months later. Wow.
Yeah.
There are.
So that made me feel a little bit better. I was like, well, at least no one's out there impersonating Jonathan and Kaitlyn Tate.
Right.
Maybe.
Exactly.
Maybe.
It's amazing the horror stories that come out of situations like this, and it seems like in a lot of adoptions, we've all got stories to tell of that. Ultimately, we've got stories to tell of God's faithfulness, because that's what happens in the long run. God is faithful through it all, and he's seeing us through it all in order to bring about something amazing. And so that's kind of where we want to go to now. So you guys, you've got all your paperwork turned in, everything's going on. Then you get in, for anybody out there who's wondering, adoptions, especially international adoptions, they're not cheap, man.
Or say, I don't know. This is different for me. Me and my wife have done foster care.
That's right. Okay.
And so,
our dossier would not be a
adoption
wording
process. I mean, maybe we did have some sort of file that has our pictures and different things like that.
Right.
But I don't think it's nearly as extensive as what y'all were describing and sticking in the mail. So
you've got stuff like, you're having to pay for legal documents that you have to have filed. You're having to pay for in-country care in some cases and stuff like that. You're paying adoption fees. You're paying legal fees, lawyer fees. I mean, all of this stuff gets stacked up, and it's huge. It's huge, but again, God provides. So let's move into that. Let's move into where we kind of cross paths last fall. You guys, we had gotten your name through some mutual friends, and we had obviously had connections through camp and stuff like that in the past, and so we had gotten your all's names through some mutual friends. And here at camp, we have this ministry called Nonstop Families that is part of our donors, our supporters each month. They give 15% of their monthly support goes to this particular fund. Mm-hmm. And that fund, 100% of that money is used to help families like the Tates bring their kids home.
And that's specifically through your fund there, not just like
right,
camp in whole, but
right, yeah, it's through mine and Ashley's fund.
Yeah,
that's right.
The Bells.
So we were able to connect with you guys, and you guys were at the place where you were just about ready to go, right? But you still needed to pay off some legal fees.
Yeah, we had the last chunk of our fees that we had to pay before, we could be given, everything could be approved to, officially get us dates to go down and get them. And so that's where we kind of met up. And
yeah.
And I know y'all had been working on it.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just y'all had been pouring your own money into it.
Yep.
You've been asking friends and family and anybody that's willing to help, random person on the side of the street, if you can throw a few dollars this way.
Ran out of ideas for fundraising. We were like, what if we try this? And I was like, we worked so much overtime in our own jobs and just, any way to try and get funds.
Well, we were more than, it was an honor and a privilege to sit down and talk to, because we sat down with you guys for about 45 minutes to an hour, and, just kind of hearing your all story, hearing your heart, leaving that kind of interview, if you want to call it that, with no question in our heart that your all's desire was to train your children up in the way they should go in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, to disciple your children into following Jesus. And so we loved your heart. We loved exactly your story, how God brought everything about, and so we were able to come alongside them and help take care of the rest of that that funds that was needed there. And you guys had even told us during that interview that you were praying that the boys would be able to be home by Christmas. And then you guys, I don't know, every country's different. Every country is different. So some countries that if you're adopting internationally, they ask you to stay there for a month. Some ask you to stay there for 2 weeks or what have you. Now you guys were officially able to travel when? Do you remember? I mean, not an exact date, just.
So actually one of the cool things from our representative, about the beginning of the process, she said, you will travel by October 31st. And anytime we asked, she said mid-October, but by October 31st. And then we hit all those problems, and she was still like, well, we will see, but, on any of the documents, if you had to put, when do you plan on going, just always put 10/31/23. Well, she hit it right on the dot.
We flew out
on Halloween night. We left out of Lexington and headed to country. So she knew what she was doing. She's from Columbia and had worked in the programs down there, so she kind of knew how everybody worked and how the system ran. Yeah. So she knew.
Wow.
So we were there we flew in on the 31st, which technically got there on November 1st. Mm-hmm. And then we had on the 2nd, they do what they call a pre-encuentro, where we kind of met with everyone that encuentro.
Pre-encuentro, yeah.
That's the word. I was like, my Spanish is still coming.
Gotcha.
Where we met with everyone that had been involved in their lives, from their, foster family to their therapists and
psychologists,
and they kind of went over everything about them from the time that they came into care until basically that day, and just to make sure there was no questions asked. We were aware, we knew, And so then we left that meeting knowing that we're like, we didn't learn anything we didn't know, just, and so then that next morning we got to meet them, and they've been with us ever since.
Oh, that's so cool. Now, when did you guys arrive back in the States? Because like we said, you were wanting to get them home by Christmas time, and they were able to land on U.S. soil when?
December 3rd.
That's awesome. So incredibly cool. So how was Christmas? That's the question now.
Oh, it was great. They both said that was the best Christmas they ever had, and
that's
I
so cool.
couldn't agree more.
That is so cool. Well, we're really close to being out of time here, guys. But with everything that we've said up to this point, and every child has a story. I'm a firm believer that every child that comes through a situation like adoption, whether it be international or domestic, God is writing this miraculous story for them that is their story to tell. And they all have their past stories. But what's really cool in this case, you got Kevin and Dan, you got this sibling group of boys. You bring them home on December 3rd, and then we get word just I think this past spring or something that you guys had posted this announcement that I believe Kevin had received Christ as his Lord and Savior. Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool, guys. Oh man. And so and getting to see that, getting to see God bring children from the ends of the earth to place in a forever family where they are going to hear the gospel, where they are going to step into a relationship with Jesus Christ and begin the process of being a disciple of His. Man, I would just say thank you to you guys for your heart for adoption, your heart for the orphan, knowing that that's where God's heart is. And if we run near to the orphan, we're running near to the heart of God. And so, man, fantastic.
I'll ask a question here, and I'll see if I'm phrasing it correctly and whatnot. But it's essentially like, how would you encourage other people that are maybe having those same thoughts? Like, if you could go back in time and talk to your younger self and give them the advice that you wish, it's kind of one of those things, like if you could go back and tell yourself something in the past, how would you encourage yourself, or how would you encourage those people that are maybe just now thinking about that, like, well, maybe adopt, but I don't really know. And then there's all these things that I don't really, how would you encourage them to, I guess, process, or even just tell them to get into it?
Like, just if you know that that's where your heart is, and you know that that's what God's wanting you to do, you can't worry about money or logistics or, because, I mean, if you let your mind go, there's always, 9,000 things you can think about, but you just have to know this is where God's leading, and everything, whether it be the last minute, 11:59 before midnight, but things are going to fall into place, and you just have to trust Him and just have to be ready.
Basically, the story's already been written. We just have to go through the process and the troubles that will prepare us for that moment.
Yeah.
And it really was a struggle beginning of 2023, just because we hit one problem after another problem after another problem. When we got that word that the other family had sent in the LOI, we were devastated. We were like,
we thought this was God's moment.
She kind of shut down on me. My mind kind of was like, well, is this the end of the process? It's like, so then everything after that was like, well, then why are we even sending this paper in? But we knew deeper in our minds and deeper in our hearts that these boys were meant to be ours. So there was still always a fight to, okay, we need to do this because we need to get our boys home.
Yeah, we're just trusting that. We just knew that we're like, I can't get this feeling out. Like, I think, like, God has shown us that, like, these are our boys, so we're just going through the process. And so I think just telling ourselves, like you said, if we could go back in time, to just trust the process and don't let the hiccups and the hang-ups and this delayed and this not working out, you can't in the moment it feels really big, but in the grand scheme of things, it's just like a stepping stone to get to, all the goodness and the promises of God and those sweet boys' faces.
Well, guys, again, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you for being on the podcast. I know this was we messaged you last week, kind of spur of the moment, but I'm like, man, this is a great opportunity just to share your all story. You're close to coming up on almost a year of having them home here in the next few months, and you've got a lot of people that have been able to hear your story. A lot more people are going to be able to hear your story, and the hope is that, hey, if you're listening to this podcast and you've got questions about adoption, you can get in contact with us. We would love to talk to you about it. If you know someone who is in the process of adopting, we would love to talk to them. We would love to talk to some Christian families who are in that process, who are looking to bring their kids home, and maybe they do need some financial assistance. Maybe they need to talk. Maybe they just need to talk to somebody and say, hey, can you kind of counsel me through this and find out what's going on? All that is needed. We're in this together, and we want to see kids come home. So
that's another big part of their story that they had there is just the number of people that came along with you all.
That's right.
It's not something that you have to figure out on your own.
Yep.
There's all kinds of people. There's the people working at the agencies that know it backwards and forwards and say things like put down October 31st.
Yeah, it's so cool.
There are friends, there's family that come alongside you to help, and you do not have to. Sometimes we think about adoption. It's like, oh, I have to figure it all out by myself.
Yeah. Yep.
No. There's so many people to come along with you, and we'd love to be able to come along with you as well.
Absolutely. For those of us here at Camp Nathaniel and Nonstop Families, I can tell you this right now. The best thing that you can do to get in contact with us, you can literally go to nonstopfamilies.com. If you go to nonstopfamilies.com, you can either you can get on there and get request some information, or you can submit more or less a financial assistance application form. And we've got a committee of people who review those, and we kind of set up interviews just like we did with the Tates, to where we can really see what God is doing, start hearing some stories, and come alongside some adoptive parents, man, and see these kids come home. So please, by all means, reach out to us. Jonathan and Kaitlyn, thank you guys again. We appreciate you guys so much. We're praying for you as you raise your family. And we rejoice with you in just seeing God do amazing things. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Lee, we're out for another week, man.
Yep. If you enjoyed hanging out with us again today, and you've got no other families that are interested in adoption or just camp and all the things that are happening here, make sure to share, subscribe, all those fun little plugs there at the end. But guys, that's how we get the word out.
That's right.
It comes by sharing it from people that are all over the world.
All right, guys. You guys have a great couple of weeks, and we'll see you back around on October 1st. All right. Have a good one.